South Placer Regional Transportation Authority for Wednesday, October 18th, 2023 to order. The time is 11:09. Welcome. And for public comment today, after I open an item for public comment, those joining us by Zoom webinar can signal they wish to speak by clicking the raise hand button located on the middle bottom portion of the Zoom webinar window. If you're joining over the phone, you can simply press star 8 or star 9, star 9. SPRTA staff will call out individuals one by one who have indicated they wish to speak. If you experience technical difficulties and are unable to provide public comment during this meeting, please email your comment to Sable at ssabol@pctpa.net. Thank you. And Mayor Joyner, would you lead us in the flag today?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, so could we get a roll call, please?
Broadway.
Here.
Howdeshelt.
Here.
Joyner.
Here.
Jones.
Here.
Right. Wow.
Excellent. The next item on our agenda today is approval of the minutes from September 27, 2023.
Joyner moves approval. Howdeshelt seconds.
All right. Any further discussion? If not, you want to do a roll call or?
Need to.
Okay.
No.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed or abstentions? Passes unanimously. Next item is agenda review. Matt, do we have any items that need to be modified on today's agenda?
No, Chair, the agenda remains unchanged.
All right, wonderful. Item E is our next item. That is AB 2449.
Chair, no action needed. All members are present, accounted for.
Wonderful. We'll move to item F, which is public comment. This is an item for individuals from the public to comment on items that are not on our agenda today. Individuals would be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone in chambers that wishes to comment on an item not on our agenda today? There being no one in chambers, do we have anyone online?
No.
We do not. Okay. We will therefore move to our next item, which is item G. That is our public hearing. It's adoption of a regional transportation and air quality mitigation fee comprehensive update for 2023. And I believe Rick is going to present that today.
Good morning, Chair and board members. There's sort of two parts to this presentation. First, I'll have Don Hubbard, the technical director at GHD, come up and present on the Nexus study and kind of the process that went through that. And that's kind of the bulk of the presentation. When Don's done, I have a couple of slides, finish up a couple of items that are included in the resolution. One of those is a request to refund local funds for a couple of fee credits that are kind of fairly low dollar amounts to kind of resolve some accounting challenges. And then we also have to adopt a CIP as part of the Nexus. So with this, I'd like to invite Don Hubbard up to start off the presentation.
SPRTA program. And then I'll briefly go through some recent legislation that's been passed that affects this program and all fee programs statewide. After that, I'll discuss the Nexus study that we did that we did to fulfill those legal requirements and the preceding legal requirements. And then I'll get into the results of the Nexus study and our recommended proposed changes in fees. After that, I'll pass the mic back to Rick to talk about a couple of related issues that are also in the resolution. So let's start by discussing the SPRTA program and why it's being updated. The South Placer Regional Transportation Authority fee was established 21 years ago to help fund improvements in Western Placer County, including the cities of Roseville, Rockland, Lincoln, and parts of the unincorporated county. It says Nevada, but actually it's Placer. These jurisdictions all have their own local fees that fund local improvements. That the SPRTA fee is more geared towards the facilities that operate between communities and serve more than one community. Thus far, it successfully brought in $67 million to help fund infrastructure that's been triggered to accommodate new growth. The program was updated in 2006, 2007, 2009, and again in 2014. These programs are supposed to be updated regularly, and yours has been compliant with that. So why do we update the fees? Well, the simple answer is the state law requires it. The reason is that conditions change over time, including traffic levels, expectations about new development, construction costs, and so on. Some projects get built and then you don't need to collect money for them anymore. Other projects get added to the list depending on changing needs. And the goal of this is to maintain fairness to all concerned. Development is asked to pay its fair share of needed improvements, but no more than their fair share. So the purpose of the nexus study is to analyze what that nexus is, what the fair share is, new developments, a contribution to the need for these improvements. The state legislature has recently had its eye on fee programs because of concerns about impact fees and how they affect housing affordability. So in the last couple of years, they passed a number of new laws that affect SPRTA and other fee programs statewide. And the first and most important one is AB 602, which went into effect last year and was intended to clean up what the legislature called an opaque and informal patchwork of guidelines and practices, and to reduce the fee program to reduce fees on small affordable units specifically. Most of the provisions in AB 602 were about best practices. And since your program already followed best practices in many respects, this doesn't affect you as some of the more loosey-goosey programs that are done in other parts of the state. So there are fewer changes affecting you. However, there is one big change that does affect SPRTA and everybody else, and that's that fees for residential development must now be based on the floor area of the dwelling unit, just like fees are assessed for office buildings or retail space, depending on the size of the floor area. This is how the state is trying to reduce the burden on smaller units by shifting more of the burden to the larger units that tend to generate more traffic. So instead of charging a flat fee for single-family houses and a different flat fee for apartments and then another flat fee for senior housing, we're now going to have to separate each of those categories into subcategories based on the size of the unit. And we've settled on having 4 tiers: a small, medium, large, and extra large sizes that were determined in consultation with the advisory committee and with the BIA. And again, the point of all this is to ensure that the larger units pay more than smaller units. And each size of the unit pays proportional to the amount of traffic it generates. So if you look on this table, the smallest size, if the size 1,500 to 2,500, that's the average size unit. So the smaller units will be paying 17% less than average. The largest units would be paying 14% more, and that's based on surveys on how much traffic they generate. The legislature's other focus has been on accessory dwelling units, which are separate additional dwellings built on a lot that already has a house. These used to be charged impact fees just like any other new house. It's simply considered a new house. The fact that there was another house on the lot was not considered. But SB 13 has created a completely new system for assessing fees on them, and different from what I just described for other types of houses. To start with, ADUs smaller than 750 square feet are completely exempt from impact fees. If they're larger than 750 square feet, then the fee is proportional to the ratio of the size of the ADU compared to the primary unit. So if the ADU is half the size of the primary unit, then its fee is half of what the primary unit would have paid if the primary unit was new. And again, the point of all this is to give some aid to the creation of small units that they would be paying less than they would otherwise have paid. So that explains what we did, why we did the Nexus study update. Let me go very briefly about what was in the study and then the results. So a Nexus study is a technical report that analyzes the legal basis for an impact fee adjustment. And to be legally valid, it must show that a relationship exists. That's the nexus between new development and the need for a road improvement. In this case, PCPTA's traffic model was used to determine where future deficiencies would occur and how much of each of them is due to the growth in traffic. The growth assumptions were developed in coordination with each of the member agencies based on their expectations of what development's likely to occur in the next 20 years. Project costs were updated based on recent construction costs estimates. So some of the projects had recent estimates made, design changes and things like that. And in some cases, there was used inflation increases from a pre-existing estimate. The assumptions regarding fee sources were also updated, including the expectation that the state is likely to be less generous with grant funding for road capacity projects than in the past. The most important part of this study revolves around the concept of determining how much of the need for each improvement is attributable to new development. So what's shown here in this bar chart is an example based on one theoretical road. So with a capacity of 1,000 vehicles per hour. In case one, and the gray bar represents the existing traffic, the green bar represents the forecast of additional traffic associated with new development that's coming from the traffic model. So in case one, you can see that the road is operating well below its capacity, and even with new development, it's still operating below capacity. In that case, there's no deficiency to be fixed and no fee can be charged. In case two, the road is operating below capacity, but with the addition of new traffic, it's operating above capacity. In that case, the need to expand that road is entirely attributable to new development. And so they're responsible, 100% responsible for that work. And that's the you break it, you fix it principle. And then in the third case, there's an existing deficiency and new development makes it worse. In that case, new development's fair share of the improvement is its share of the deficiency, which is Y over X. So we updated the key inputs and used the traffic model to determine the relationship between the developments in each of the 10 fee districts and the need for specific projects. And now I'll present the results. I'll start by saying that the fees vary by district depending on the degree to which projects in that district add traffic to critical roads and trigger the need for improvement. This program has had this from the start. That's why you have different districts so that you can get a more nuanced attribution of the need for a project from developments in each location. The most expensive projects in the SPRTA program are the I-8065 interchange, the SR65 widening, and the Lincoln bypass. Fee districts that generate a lot of traffic that use those very expensive facilities will be the greatest beneficiary of them, but they also have to contribute the most to the costs. And these are Rockland, Lincoln, and the central district of the unincorporated Placer County. And in contrast, fee districts that contribute little traffic to the most expensive projects or have fee credits from pre-SPRTA fee programs will see a reduction in fees. And those are Roseville East and Granite Bay. So here's the recommended fees. The column of numbers on the left shows the recommended new fees for the average single-family dwelling or its equivalent in terms of traffic generation. The middle column shows the current fee, and the column on the right shows the changes in fees. As I mentioned in the previous slide, the biggest increases are for Lincoln and Rockland because they add traffic to the most expensive projects, but they also benefit the most from those projects. We're recommending smaller increases for the other fee districts and reductions in fees for Granite Bay and East Roseville, which have credits left over from earlier contributions. This is the very simplified table just for the average single-family dwelling. The actual fee tables look like this, the full fee tables are quite complicated due to the fact that SPRTA has 10 fee districts, 7 dwelling types, and 4 sizes for each type of dwelling, making for 280 different individual fee levels for residential development. And then similarly for non-residential, there's 180 different individual fee levels. So these are listed, are shown in full in the Nexus study report. But the reason we do this is that the program is designed to have a very nuanced and fair rationalization of the impact of projects in each locality to individual projects and improvements that need to happen. The recommended fee tables are presented in full in the Nexus study report that's part of the packet. So based on our work in updating the Nexus calculation, we recommend that the board adopt the Nexus study, including the findings that are required under state law. So the Mitigation Fee Act and then AB 602 have certain findings that you must make. These include the purpose of the fee, the list of projects, approval of the fee calculation methodology that shows that the fees are reasonable and are related to the new development, and approval of using 4 fee tiers for residential development. But before we ask the board to open the hearing and discuss this, Rick would like to present on several other actions.
Thank you, Don. So there are a couple of other actions included in the resolution. One is regarding the refunding of fee credits. The JPA agreement allows for local agencies to apply local funds to districts which reduce the fees. This has been done since the early 2000s. About $7 million in local funds have been applied for this. These are either fees that were collected prior to adoption of the program or credits related to work that was done on particular projects. This has been applied to 9 of the 10 districts. At the last accounting in 2021, the balances of those credits were anywhere between $14,000 for a district up to $1.7 million for a district. And it has the effect of reducing the fees between $1 per DUE, that's the Dry Creek area, to about $1,680. I believe that's the Granite Bay. So 4 of the districts have balances that are under $150,000. It's an average free credit for those of less than $12 per DUE. And sort of the reason I'm asking for this is we do quite a bit of accounting to account for this, right? So anytime a permit is pulled, fees are paid, there's a certain amount of credit. And we end up having to track the amount of credits that have been given to be able to deduct that from the balance every time the fees get updated. So there's a bit of work that goes into that. For these particular ones, there's low dollar amounts. The reality is with those fee credits, every time we update the fee credit amount changes. Typically what we see, so many permits are sold, but with an update of the fee credit, there's often more DUEs assumed. So what we tend to see over time is the fee credit per DUE tends to drop over time. And so as you can see in the slide, Dry Creek, the fee credit balance is $15,000 for the Newcastle Horseshoe Bar. It's about $105,000 for Placer West. It's also about $14,000, and in Rockland, it's $145,000. So what I'm basically asking is permission for SPRTA to refund those balances. We'll do a sort of a final accounting for these and refund those balances back to the agencies to avoid having to account and track these in these particular districts, given that they average out to a $12 discount, and it's not a large amount, especially sort of compared to the accounting that happens. So that's an item in the resolution. And then the last 2 slides cover the capital improvement plan. With AB 602, they require that we adopt a CIP with adoption of the Nexus. Recall prior meeting, I brought a draft CIP. So you're all aware kind of the purpose of a CIP. It's for the benefit of the public. It's a multi-year capital plan, identifies priorities, balances the revenues and the expenditures. So between now and the August meeting, we revised the revenue forecast based on comments from the last meeting It has extended the timing of some of the projects, but it hasn't changed the overall priorities. A reminder that unlike often what happens at the city or county level, this isn't a budget document. It's simply a regulatory requirement, so it doesn't allocate funds. We do come to the board individually to allocate funds to projects. So rather detailed slide showing the CIP. This is included in your packet. Again, there's not a change from the priorities that were laid out before. Some of the stuff was extended a little bit based on the change in revenue. And then recommended actions are shown on the slide. Don and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have, either before or after opening up the public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Rick. Any questions from the board? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, Don, okay. So can you pull up that map? I want to make sure I understood that map that you had in your.
The east-west correction.
No. So it was the map right before you got into.
Okay, let me see if I can get the map. Not this.
No. The map. It's
Okay,
delayed here,
this one.
so I can't.
This
No,
one?
not that map. The map with the roadway system. I apologize. Should have been more specific.
Oh, you may have been looking at this one.
Yeah,
That one. Ah, yes.
that one.
That's a model output. And
So
so
that models.
yeah,
the
okay,
future-
yeah. So this doesn't actually appear in the report.
This is not the built environment.
No. So what you see here is what I see when I run the PCPTA traffic
Okay.
model.
So
So
you
the
have-
bandwidth is proportional to the volumes, and then the color code is based on the level of service, or the volume to capacity ratio. So
So that's what threw me off, because you have Placer Parkway in there, right?
yeah, this is a future thing.
Right.
So
Okay.
and depending on certain scenarios, how wide it is and how much development occurs.
Yeah, that's
those
what threw
colors.
me off. I couldn't figure out how you had congestion on a roadway that wasn't built yet. Okay. The second question is related to ADUs.
Mhm.
Is that detached ADUs only?
Anything that fits the definition of an ADU. So in my opinion, if you have an existing building.
Right.
And you are subdividing it, like some people do, turn a garage or
If
something.
I have a
like that.
garage and I build an ADU,
Right,
love it.
you're not adding any floor space. And so the additional floor space, less than 750 square feet, you're exempt from impact fees.
So it could be an attached or detached.
That's right.
Okay.
The law
And then on that big chart you had with all the fees, the
Mhm.
280, do you say?
280 residential individuals.
So,
So-
can you
so
pull
just-
that up one more time?
Sure. So the
Okay,
reason
just-
there's 280 is.
Yep.
So looking at
I
the,
don't need to know why 280.
okay,
So less than 1,500. 50, so is this livable space? So
it's the
you
gross
know,
floor area.
with,
It's the gross floor area. So it's you build something, it's got living rooms, it's got bedrooms, it's got
Right.
hallways.
if I have a loggia out the back, is that
If it's opened, no, but it depends on how we rely on the individual jurisdictions and how they are characterizing the building in their building permit.
okay?
So but like a covered patio and something would typically not be included.
All right.
A
If we were in
garage
Florida
would
and
not
I
be
had a
included.
Florida room, it would be, right?
Mm.
Okay, and then less than 1,500, so that means 1,499.
Mhm.
1,500 is, okay, yeah, that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
Thank you, Bruce. Any other questions from the board? All right, we will then open up for public comment. Do we have anyone in chambers who wishes to comment on this item from the public? Well, Mr. Short.
Jeff Short, North State BIA. Since I'm here, just want to reiterate that we appreciate the work of the staff with us. Come a long way from kind of the original proposal to where we are. Again, still not thrilled with how high some of these fees are, but we recognize the need for the facilities. So to use a term that I think I coined in Rockland a couple of years ago, here to register my active non-opposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Short, and thank you and the BIA for your input throughout this process. Do we have anyone else in chambers who wishes to comment on this item? Do we have anyone online?
We do.
Okay.
Make me co-chair. One moment.
Okay. For the individual waiting online to be added, we are working through a technology item right now, so we'll add you as soon as possible.
Peter Eklund, you're free to speak.
Thank you very much. I have a couple minor comments. First, it's an impressive piece of work, and it's sorely needed. I just have a couple comments. The first one involves the $100 million for transit improvements. I have a feeling this is double counting what's in the current, the sales tax measure that was in for 2020. I think that that measure could change significantly, and I think it relates a lot to bus rapid transit, which has become a non-factor in planning for the next 15 years. It sort of was a hot item in 2009, but it's a non-factor right now, and that was a major factor. And I think you need to show where that money is coming from. Transit improvements hopefully will be included as part of complete streets, improvements, and then a lot of the amenities won't have to be a separate item. So that's my issue on that one. Is I think you really need to document where the $100 million is coming from, the transit improvements. The second item relates to the trip factors per unit. The standard for doing that is the IT book, and it's aggregated data over time. It uses data, some of it which is like 20 years old, and some of it was done 2 months ago. So, and there is a way to try to look at emphasize the recent data. But I think the issue is everybody now is interested in reducing VMT, vehicle miles of travel, and a lot of cities adopt some measures that that allow developers to reduce their fees if they can show that they're reducing VMT, like being within a quarter mile of transit or providing bus passes to people. And I guess my question would be, would a developer have an option to generate some mitigation measures and have a cost value assigned to that, and that would reduce his costs? Various ways things could be done. Sometimes you could do it as part of the original fee. That probably is not worth the effort. But maybe if a developer wants to try to VMT, is there an option for him to do that? Of course, if you decide to do that, it's going to have to be something that extends over time. Although it could be a bus turnout or something else. But so that's my second question. I think, I'd like a response, I guess, on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Eklund. Do we have anyone else online who wishes to comment?
No.
We do not. All right. With that, we will close public comment. Staff, would you like to address either of those questions or both?
Yeah, and if I understood him correctly, he's questioning if there's the ability for a developer to do something to lower their fees, and they're not. The fees, the fees are what they are. The fees are basically due and payable when they pull permits. So there's built into the structure is not an opportunity then to if I do A, can I get a reduction in my fees? It's not built into the structure. It is possible to build some of the infrastructure that's identified and essentially take a credit on their fees, but they would have built the facility that was required of the fees. So they're not getting out of paying the fees. They're just essentially paying those in a different way.
Great.
And if I could, through the chair, to the first question / comment of Peter's, and Peter, I apologize. It was a little mumbled, but I understood you talking about transit funding inside of the SPRTA capital program, and then also on the funding measure expenditure plan. And I'll just say, Peter is looking at the expenditure plan as it existed for the 2016 measure, and then maybe how it was proposed in a draft form for 2020. We don't, sitting here today, have a vetted, approved expenditure plan for any 2024 ballot measure that's come before the PCTPA board and been approved. And so we will be working through that and looking at what the right project mix is for that expenditure plan for 24. If the PCTPA board were to, move forward with the ballot measure.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rick, and thank you, Matt. And Mr. Eklund, if there are other questions, you're certainly welcome to reach out for staff. I know that you've been engaging with them, so I do appreciate that.
Mr. Chair, really quickly, I'm going to agree with what Mr. Click's representation of the value Mr. Eklund brings to this. He triggered a thought. So in Roseville, we have, and in other jurisdictions they have facilities that are for elderly who are not mobile. Are they? I'm looking at a chart here, table 3, it says convalescent hospital. I assume that those types of facilities who are for disabled, elderly disabled folks don't generate any traffic. They're not in the fee. Is that their square footage is somehow? I think it's a Don question.
Take that one. Their staff and visitors and things like that. They do generate. They don't generate much, and the ITE does calculate it based on square footage, but their trip generation rate per square foot is much lower than other uses. But
thank you. All right. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Maybe, if I may.
Okay, absolutely.
I just want to thank staff. At our last meeting, I requested that they meet with my staff and myself in Lincoln and address some of our concerns. They did that. And I think answered those questions very well. I'm not terribly happy with the information that you had to convey. We've got a remarkably good staff here that is doing their job, and some of the historic decisions that were made have put, I believe, Lincoln in a position where we're just going to feel as though we're getting the brunt of this. That's not your fault. You're doing your job. And I very much appreciate that. And I think where I'm going to have to wind up on this is recognizing that in most respects, this fee falls upon the developers, eventually, obviously upon the homeowner themselves, the buyer, but upon the developers. And if they are actively in non-opposition, then I'm going to go ahead and vote in favor of the recommendations.
Any other comments? I just want to say, Don, thank you for your team and the hard work that was put into assessing this. Staff, outstanding job as always. And then to the BIA, I want to thank the BIA for their continuous engagement, discussions throughout. This is just demonstrative again of how within Placer County and across our municipalities, we work collectively. We don't always come out in 100% agreement, but we can agree to disagree, and we can agree to move forward with what we believe is in the best interests of our residents and the builders who really make this, we all working together, make this a great place to live. So I want to thank everyone for their contributions. And with that, what is the pleasure of the board? Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve both the refunding of fees and approval of resolution 2305. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed or abstentions? There being none, it passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is the Nevada Station Building sale and bond relinquishment.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a companion action to what you took at PCTPA. I can't explain it as eloquently as Jody did, but this is essentially allowing us to sell the building and pay off the bonds and keep moving forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
She would have done a better job.
Any questions from the board on this item? Do we have anyone in chambers who wishes to comment on this item? Do we have anyone online?
No.
No. All right. I will bring it back to the board for either discussion or action.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed or abstentions? There being none, it passes unanimously. Next item is item I, our executive director's report.
Nothing to add today, but I do want to just also, as we're, all congratulating one another, I do want to take a moment to thank Jeff and thank the BIA for their collaboration. We met with them over the period of 4 to 6 months, had a lot of hard conversations, but I've said to them privately, I always love going there because they are builders. They're people who do things and they want to, get things done. And it's just, it's a great group of people to work with and collaborate with. And they certainly understand the value of this. And we're going to continue to also move forward and work together in a federal advocacy plan to go to Washington and to bring more of that money that we're already sending there back home where it belongs. And that's something that Jeff and I will continue to work on together. So I think the final product, the final capital program, the final fee table, the final nexus study, all of that is much better because of the collaboration we had with the BIA and the partnership we had with them. So, Chair, I just wanted to express my gratitude to them and to all of you for your leadership on this. I know these are the tough ones. So thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next item is board direction to staff. Do we have any direction for staff today? All right, item K is our informational items, which was the minutes from the TAC report from October 3rd, which is included in our packet. If there are no other items, our next regularly scheduled SPRTA meeting will take place on December 6th. And with that, we are adjourned.